Hello. I'm Dan Lutz, and welcome to WWG1WGA.LOVE, where we go one, we go all.love. And today is Wednesday, June 26, 2019. And yesterday we had a bit of a problem. The internet was down for a while, and so I actually did manage to get online. But I didn't realize, because I was going from my cell phone, I was able to connect to the cellular tower and run off of that internet. But it did not have it wasn't set for public viewing, it was set for private. So, though I did do it, I did, of course, made it, I unprivated it and made it public after I noticed that. But anyway, I was able to get online. And so, it was not the normal broadcast. I only made it about 15 minutes, so it is there if you want to see. And this morning, I was trying to catch up on things. I wasn't able to get into everything I was hoping to. But I did catch up on a bunch of things. Now, something that just came up, and I did watch the entire show, and I finished just a few minutes before this broadcast. This is Edge of Wonder, and they went over Lord Astar and the Astar Command. So, since I had never, ever, ever looked into Lord Astar or knew anything, of course, I've heard the name, and I heard, the Galactic Federation Council, but I never ever looked into it. So I said, "Oh, great opportunity! let me actually listen to these guys." And so they did the research and they compiled it and put it out there as to what it actually is. When I heard about Galactic Federation and all the rest of it, so I really never knew where. That it was part of Lord Astar, that whole thing and how it came about. I had no idea that was the origin of the topic of Galactic Federation came from there. I heard them associated, but never knew that was the inception point of where that information came back, or from when it started back in the 1950s, and having to do with a broadcast and an interruption of a broadcast on TV, I guess. So they actually didn't dive too much into that. I would like to have seen seen the actual broadcast. And I don't know if there's not a recording of it or not, but they did not show that. But I'd like to see that, see what that interruption was all about. But it went into also it came down to basically three different things. It's either it was real, and Lord Astar, arrived here in the 1950s and did this, and they have the best purposes, or it's a cabal plan, right? And then they use the voice of God technology and did things to kind of create this situation where they lessen God, the Creator, to just the beings that had created humanity, which are the Anunnaki, or it is was a combination. It was that, yes, Lord Ashtar was real, and that the cabal came along and morphed the message so that they could, still control humanity. So, in all that, I thought it was pretty revealing anyway to dive back and see that perspective on it, because it is, I think, important to know where these things come from. So this is one of those these points that where you can, the topic is so vast and so overly broad on where you need to go to find information, that you just have to listen to all of it and just treat it with openness, and then don't try to make decisions. And that's a lot of things that I do. I on any front, I'll try and absorb as much information about it, see if I can see if it fits into what I already know, and I'll just sometimes leave a lot of things on the shelf. Right? What is the connection between the Galactic Federation of Planets and Star Trek's United Federation of Planets? Is there a connection? That's something I've put on the shelf. Well, they went into a little bit of it on this Edge of Wonder episode. So I encourage everyone to go ahead and watch this episode. I'm not going to play any of it because you literally would have to go through the entire thing to pick it up. And so I think it's good just to go ahead and look. But I do appreciate these guys and the effort that they put out there. And they're open to information. Like, they get information from Corey Goode and David Wilcox. They did interviews with them. And that's fine. I'd interview, David Wilcox and Corey Goode, right? Because, even though there's, the blue chicken cult, related to Corey Goode, and then the Gaia people coming out and basically, basically diminishing the character of Corey Goode because of what they saw him on a personal basis. This is all just information that, sits there on the shelf. And, how do you decide? Right? Until you literally are staring at the terminal of the Swift 2 and seeing the the names going across, and it says Kimberly Ann Gogolan, that would be, then that you were there. So otherwise, it's always something you have to put on the shelf and accept it to a point until there's something contrary to it, and then some things you just have to go by your heart and judge what you think is ultimately the direction you should follow. Take that path. And I've followed the path and gone to many different places, so it's a pretty good system anyway. But things do get turned upside down a bit. Now, also, I want to say, I in catching up with things, I also listened to Thomas Williams' broadcast that he made as part of one of his must listen to episodes, which is, I think, a pretty good idea. And it covered a lot of different topics. And one of those that I wanted to bring up was the Facebook coin. It's called Libra. And when he went over it, it does sound to me, and I completely think that this is something that I think is the case, is the new Federal Reserve, the new world reserve currency is to be Facebook, and making Facebook into the new Federal Reserve Bank. because if you listen to the way they've structured it, and now I have not actually read through all of it. Now Thomas did; he put out the information. But in listening to Thomas's show, I agree that this is something where it's obviously that they're trying to create a new system that's just like the existing system that basically is a parasite. So this is they're going to be pushing this, and you can see it all over the place. When Thomas talks about the technology pieces of this, he's doing his best to interpret, right? And since I kind of dive into technologies and I have a base understanding of how things work, one of the technologies I've been watching for the last few years, I think, is something that Libra Coin has adopted as a technology, right? And they're also doing a couple other things, but it looks like they just took some pieces of some different technologies and said, "Oh, we're going to do it like this, and we're going to do it like that. Oh, this is good. Okay, we'll do this." Because once you come out with the first version of something, and it's run for a while, you get to see the issues. And so, actually, I was giving an example to Tank a little bit earlier about on the technology front, on why you really need to change out the banking system. You can't literally exist on the existing system. So when you first create something, and it runs, and I gave the example of the first Apple Mac computer. And you basically went through all these versions of the operating system, right? And then the technology in the next computer got better. The hardware got faster. Everything, all the processing speed doubled every 18 months. All the RAM capacity and storage space doubled every 18 months. And while that happened, it was able to grow and become better and faster. And you noticed the difference. And so incrementally, it became better until version 8 of the Mac operating system. When version 8 came out, it did not get better. It became the same. You were not processing any faster. Version 9 came out, it actually went slower. Even though the RAM capacity and processor speed doubled, things went slower. It met the point of diminishing returns. You could not, so if they can continue down the road of making, instead of OS 10 being the one that it is, it was the same technology, they would have actually become slower and slower until it wouldn't operate anymore. It's kind of like a pyramid structure, but you add a much bigger base. And so when you add a layer, you're not adding to the top, you're adding to the bottom. And it becomes thicker and slower to operate. So when they actually went to OS 10, it was completely different operating system. It was nothing like the previous one. A little tidbit to that, it was actually Unix. Steve Jobs picked up that when he did his next computer. It was based on Unix. And Unix is basically an operating system. And Linux systems are a version of Unix. It's just a basic open architecture system. And so you can build on that. It's a strong foundation. You can build, and you can change out what you're building. And so that core piece of technology was designed well in the very beginning of when Unix was put out there. So in that same way, Apple computers needed to cast aside their old technology. We are seeing the same thing happening in the banking industry. All of the programs and everything that they've put in place, all of that core technology becomes more complicated. And when they want to do an upgrade, it takes a lot of time. When they want to create a different feature, it creates a lot of time. And then things don't quite start working, and they have to go on and patch and do a bunch of patches, and the patches are there. And so you just start putting these patches on something, and you build on the patches. Eventually, it actually breaks down. It becomes so. We are in version 9 of the banking operating system, right? Version 10 has to come in and completely cast aside that. This is what, and Thomas was pointing out, Bitcoin was a version of this technology upgrade that they want to put out there to make it much better for them. So now I completely believe that this is their plan, is to use Bitcoin as their system, and also Facebook, and to decentralize it, right? Because the centralized model is not efficient. It is super difficult to make changes. That was again version 8 of the Apple operating system. It was building that pyramid becomes more complicated. They have to decentralize it. Now this also. I want to say something about that. This is not a bad thing. This is nature. The nature is decentralized in the way plants develop and animals. Everything has its own independent thing, and they interact where needed with one another. And so this a decentralized model of building something is more efficient, is better. But I've always seen this as one of the main issues, is that this cabal system will die. The whole parasitic system will die because of its nature. In decentralizing and thinking that's their road to the future, it will cause this to die. It also means all of this parasitic nature can also die. I do not think they believe that. I think they believe they get a lot of control and all this kind of stuff. So, but I think that this is, just something that they just can't see coming down the line. But I also think that this technology that's behind I said Facebook is grabbing these pieces of technology. One of the pieces is one that I've been watching for a while, which does not have a blockchain. It is not blockchain. But it solves all of the same issues that the blockchain technology does more efficiently. And instead of it's actually a decentralized model of data and transactions. Instead of if you look at the blockchain, it's centralized around a block, and then another block, and then another block, and another block, and another block, and another block. And you have to copy that entire block every time a transaction is made. So it also becomes difficult, right? So this is a system that is going to be continually producing new, how to say this? This newer technology that is under Hashgraph. Hashgraph is a new technology that uses what they call consensus. They also use something called fairness. But in this consensus, it's basically a way of replacing this whole copying the whole thing, right? And everything identical. There's another way of agreement of a transaction was valid. And so this particular element, I think, is something that Facebook grabbed. And there's other things that they're doing as well. But altogether, though, I think that the Facebook coin Libra is going to be what they're going to do is trying to create a system where it is just like the Federal Reserve. Now, what else they've done that makes it look like the Federal Reserve is what their Libra is supposedly going to be backed. But backed by what? Well, apparently the cash deposits as well as bonds, which are IOUs. Well, the cash deposits are also IOUs. They're notes, Federal Reserve notes. So the cash deposits are Federal Reserve notes. They're also debt. So they're using the debt of everybody in Facebook. If you decide you're going to work with this, I don't know these details, but how are they gathering this? Is it own? So they also have a group of investors, right? The people behind the curtain, the bankers that own the private bank, right? These are this council that's put in the upfront money to make this all happen. These become, the new overlords of the world, right? So, I do not think that this Facebook, I think, is something everyone should rush to. You should avoid it like the plague. Bitcoin, on the other hand, I don't think that's the case, but that's a whole other reasons why I think that. Now, and looking at though the banking system, it has to upgrade. The old technology has to be replaced with new technology. I'll give you an example. These web browsers that we use to interface with our accounts on the banks, what is the encryption that they use? What is the safety? How do they safeguard this transaction that you're doing? You're paying a bill. You're moving money from your savings to your checking. How is this safeguarded? They use an encryption that was at a level called 128-bit. That's the encryption level. So that's 128 little ones and zeros. Now, this is the same encryption level from 25 years ago. Literally. The technology that in, let's say, Telegram for this chatting back and forth that we do, if we do the secret chat, it's 2048-bit. So that's 20 times higher encryption. So just looking at it from that standpoint, it's old and it needs to be replaced. So the dynamic nature of us, if we actually all became the source, if I talk about the reversed economy, right, where the flow of money flows to the people. If that was the case, if the flow is coming to us, then we're going to be much more easy for us to now go and do our own businesses, right? Because we have the fuel. We're the source, right? It's all flowed to us, and now we can send it outwards as we create. So we would need a system that was able to keep up with all that dynamic, that dynamic interface that has to go between people and the different business transactions going. It has to keep up. Now, on this hash graph system, it was they do it. They're capable of doing 250,000 transactions per second. Now, compared to the Visa system, Visa MasterCard, the credit card system, it can do 25,000 transactions per second. Now, that's 10 times faster. If you want to look at Bitcoin, we're down to 70 transactions per second. And you can boost that up to 120 transactions per second with kind of making some gameplay, right? That decreases security, but it's still okay. It's still secure enough. And if you look at like taking a fork like Bitcoin Cash, it's now getting up into I think it's 1,000 transactions per second. But compared, it's not enough, right? It's not enough to replace how credit cards work, right? If you're not at that level, how can you do anything? Now, compared to, say, I talk about Kringle coin, that is like one of the third about the third fastest on the planet right now, outside in the cryptocurrency world. It's around 3,000 transactions per second. Still not as much as Visa MasterCard, but that's okay. It could be improved. So these things are constantly evolving technologies. We have to basically upgrade the banking system. Now, what technology to use for that, is where we have to look at what we have available, what are the tools, and we apply it. But we apply it in a way that is open architecture, meaning that you know what all the pieces do, right? And then you have closed source so that people can protect their environments, their transactions, privacy side, in other words. So anyway, so this is something that I think is going to become very important, since we know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's an important meeting in Fiji. So I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that on Dank Live today. It's about an hour from now. Don't worry, I'll make the link for it, the event link. I know I'm behind on making the event links, but I'll make it after this broadcast. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and post the link if someone would like to come on and have a discussion. I'll go ahead and I'll post it in the chat, and also in the Where We Go One We Go All.love Telegram group. There we go. Interesting. I just saw someone posted in the group a video on Anderson Cooper does a 360. I thought he was 360. Anyway, so let me go ahead. I'm going to zoom in. Let me share my screen first on the chat, and we'll go over the chats. Okay, let me give a like. There's 60 people watching and 22 likes. I was the 22nd, so go ahead and give us a like. Let's see, where are we at? Good moments to everybody. Is that my good moments? You can't find this episode on YouTube. Which episode are you referring to? The one we're on right now? You're chatting in it. So try again on the question. Oh yes, the must listen to that I was referring to with that is called the must listen to series 12, Clowns in Panic, 622. Yeah, that's a very good one. Diana saying Astar Command was in Saint Germain's books back in 1930, not the 50s. Okay, that's fine. But the research that was done by the guys at Edge of Wonder are talking back to a broadcast interruption, and where the one that was channeling the information. Oh no, did he actually meet? One guy met Lord Astar, and the other guy was channeling. So I don't know which one, or which one yet. But it said that that it was just in the 1950s he's entered the solar system. So. But anyway, that's what they say. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, why I was bringing up, so she says they never mention the Anunnaki, right, in these books. So I think the Edge of Wonder guys were referring to what is the Cabal's agenda is to say the Anunnaki are the gods, right? And the creator is not as important as the one that actually created us. And this was the point they were trying to make as the cabal's mind control to send us down this line to think that this is the important thing, is that they are the gods. What is? Yeah, Diana. So what episode is? It's the one that was mentioned just above. Yeah, it's on Clowns in America. It's just posted, 12 hours ago. So I look under his must listen to on is it the People Club website. Yes, Dan. Don't get involved with the money from Facebook. But you must receive the mark. You have to put an F here on your forehead or on your hand, and then you can transact. Right? Said Dan, it says you're not as loud as you usually are. So the question is, is that the case? Please let me know if I'm not as loud. I will actually. I do have one, preference setting I can look at to see if there's anything that has changed there. But I recognize that always was changing only when I ever used like a headset at some in here. So either I might not just be close enough to the microphone, or you didn't turn up the volume enough. I don't. Is Bitcoin touted as cabal? Again, yeah, I can say that this was definitely created by the cabal and put out in the system, but I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that this will evolve past them. The nature of some, when you go from a centralized system to a decentralized system, you no longer have the system you thought you had and what you're trying to build. You think you're going to get greater control, right? And are they using this for data mining? Yes, they are. Yeah, of course they are. That's why when I was building Personami, it was all about keeping everybody's data for themselves. They owned all their own data. They wanted to sell their data. That would be a conscious choice. They could sell their own data. But they also know what they're selling, right? Most of the time, we don't know what we're selling. We're not actually selling it. They're selling it because we're on their free platform, which is not free because they're absorbing you into their platform. They are the Borg. So Kimmy Shea is saying, so why was Dan late? More internet BS? Just curious. Yes, that's the noise. Sounds like a gremlin. You mean late yesterday? Today I was only a few minutes late, so I was actually broadcasting about the normal time. But yesterday, yeah, I didn't actually get my internet back, my fiber connection until just 10 minutes before I went online with Dank Live with Tank. So, but those things happen. This was there was no cabal activity on this. This was just normal internet glitch. I don't get too many. Look, we did a 120 episodes straight, something like that, and we're good. Dan, what's that sweeping noise? That was because there was sweeping. Yeah, my wife decided she wanted to clean the balcony, and so she was swishing off all of the excess. We had a lot of rain here the last couple of days, using the water on the patio to, I guess, use it to clean that's there and push off the excess water down the little side drain. Okay, let's see. Let me zoom in here a little bit now. You didn't know that bonds were IOUs. Well, a bond is basically a promise to pay you interest, right, on you giving them money now, right? So they're going to pay you back the money you gave them plus interest. That's a bond. Yeah. Yeah, money is technology. It has to progress. That's it. We just have to make sure the money that we're progressing is not going to be under the control of people that are going to manipulate it. So money is meant as a medium of exchange, but what else does it mean? It actually is to represent a unit of your effort that you've put into this. So it's a pretty important topic. So a unit of measurement of your work. So if we go back to the beginning of how money was coming about, we had temples that the farmers would come in with their grain, and this is their toil in the soil. They took this grain and gave it to the temple, and the temple gave them this money in order to represent their worth of their effort, the value of that effort. When they detached the effort that the people put in there to represent their toil, because that's what they're exchanging, right? You know, because that's the base unit. You put effort into something, you created something. Now, the temple kept all the grain because they had the storage facility, and then they could send it back out to other people. You can, I've got this kind of grain and this kind of grain, and you've got that kind and that kind. So now we can trade with this unit of exchange in between. So this was the purpose. But when they detached it from the value of the people, and how did they do that? It became evil. That what they did was they started to charge interest. When you charge interest, what is the value that interest is representing? Where is the work performed by somebody? Right? It doesn't exist anywhere. So you're making money off of somebody's that already worked, so you have to take from them. Now, since they no longer have what you just took from them to put for the interest, they've been diminished. So as this system increases, and goes on and on and on and on, the value of what the people are is diminished, and you can never pay back the interest. This is why it's evil. It has to be representing the people, the worth that they put into it. That is the exchange. Now, the other element of that is if you looked at gold, for example. So is there work put into it? Of course, you have to mine it. Is it difficult? Yes. So it has a high value because it's rare and hard to get. So maybe there's some other reasons why it's valuable, but it's still representative of effort that's gone out to create it. So what is the value of the gold? It's just in ground, the in-ground asset. We're going to basically bank on that, right? This is, again, where the evil comes into this, because you really don't know what's underground, and you have some company come out and do some figures and tests of the soil and say, oh, you've got this much. They have no idea. They could be 1% off, or they can be 1,000% off. on their calculations of what's there. But so again, it's using the money to make money, and whenever that happens, that's when the evil, when it becomes evil, when it becomes you can never pay it back. So it's always taking from the life of someone else. They put all of their work effort into paying back the interest only. That's where it's slavery. So, all right, let's flip back over to the chat. Okay, backdoor in every computer. There is a backdoor on every processor made. It's actually an identification number, so they can track actually individual computers. Yes. But there are many cryptos that are ethical. So yes, I know that the concept of, say, for example, Kringle Society, and what the intent is there to distribute coin to people that has a value that's attached to the members, and the more members, it's referenced by gold, it goes up. The purpose is to get the coin distributed into the hands of people. Is it hard to use? Yes. It's very difficult. You can use it, but you have to convince people of the value. They have to see it. If you're not good at that, it's going to be very difficult for you. Now, in places where there are, 1.5 million people that have this, or in the case of 1% of the population, it's in Nigeria, it's being used in fairs and in stores more and more because there's enough people. This would happen worldwide. If it became 10% of the population, it'd be 10 times easier to use it. So, but the system was designed to give more to the people that are the earlier adopters. But in the end, there would be 1 million billionaires, and they bill in one. I say 1 million billionaires, and then almost 1 billion millionaires, so that there would be enough value distributed out there to the people, and there would be people would have more and people would have less. Not too many people have more than me in it. I have a lot. I'm a trillionaire. I've got trillions in value referenced by the number of members and the value attached to gold, or the price attached to gold. The value is attached to the members. So there's a good purpose in it. Another one would be Initiative Q. Now, people think it's a cryptocurrency, and it's not. They say that they're trying to make a competitor to PayPal, but what they're doing is they're creating a membership base for a payment system. And if you have enough people that are using their Qs, that they would then be able to use this amongst each other in this payment system. So they have thoughts on how they're going to value it and how it's going to exchange and so on like that. But so there's initiatives out there. There's people that say, oh, we're going to be doing a coin that's for veterans, right? And where we use this to raise money to build homeless vet shelters. There's all sorts of uses. It's just a tool to be used to make. You can use it to raise money for a company, a project, just another form of crowdfunding. That you just have a unit, right? And then maybe when it goes out and put on the market, not all go on markets. Some go on markets, some don't. It just depends. It's just a technology that use an accounting system. That's basically what it is. It's an accounting system. a database of data that you can use for accounting purposes. Dan Lutz, have a conversation with Ivan on tech about what we are about tonight. I don't understand. Who's Ivan is here? Okay, what's the please have conversation with Ivan on tech about what we're on about tonight. Okay, well, I'm not sure who Ivan is. But yeah, the technology side is going to evolve. Lisa says, stay with 4G. Trump says no 5G. Well, Trump also said, let's go right to 8G. So technology will evolve. Yes, is 4G good enough? Yeah, for the most things, we're okay. But 5G, there is going to be a newer system that's coming out, but can it be used for bad purposes? Yes. Can we stop it? I don't think that there's a lot of doom and gloom around it, but there's been doom and gloom around 2G, 3G, 4G every single time. Don't worry so much about 5G. Worry about who's in control of it. That's what I say. I only showed 10 likes for the. Well, I don't. Let's see. I'll look later, see where we're at. I don't want to change, but yeah, please make sure to give your likes, thumbs ups, positive comments. Lisa says, my husband diagnosed with cancer May 2nd. Trails everywhere. Let me address this because I've I had to deal with it with my father. He had throat cancer. It's actually the reason I got into the medical marijuana movement. I was in it really to help my father, which I tried to stay out. I got pulled into it, and yeah, I was trying to not do what my path was, right, and I running into a dead end until I absorbed what I was supposed to be doing, and then it went forward and did it. But there are cannabinoids that our body uses that are very helpful in melting away cancer cells. There are things that you can do to really help yourself, and I've seen tumors melt away on people. It requires a very high dose. It's not about smoking it. Eating it is what you would have to do, but you have to make the highly concentrated oil, and that is done by having the flower of the plant, and specifically different ones have different effects, but a combination of indica and sativa have different effects. Some are it depends on what kind of cancer and so on, but in general, these basic cannabinoids will help to tell the cell to self-destruct, and it basically will melt away. Since I was involved with dozens, if not hundreds of dispensaries in California, I saw many people, I've talked with many patients that came in. I've seen many recover. Some that went completely against what the doctors were telling them. And those were the ones, everyone that did go against what the doctor said, were still living. So I can't say what is a cure or not, but I do know the people that followed what they did. My experience in seeing what happened just made me even more adamant about trying to move it forward. Phoenix tears is is one of the things that you'll find a lot of medicine when you look into the medicine about it. What is the it is a way of making the concentrate and methods of doing it. The one thing is, I highly suggest that you never use as a way of a solvent to remove the oils. Do not use isopropyl alcohol, right? And you might find some recipes out there that call for that. You don't need to do that. If you have to, just get 151 rum. Really, high rum. Clear. You don't need to have the dark rum, but clear. And use that as the solvent. That will basically loosen it from the plant, and you just separate it out. You will need to combine that with some sort of fat as well. Olive oil is okay. Coconut oil I prefer. It makes it easier for making dosages. You make it firm. You can use organic butter if you like also, and bake it into the things that you make, like cookies, brownies, or whatever. But really, it's about if you have cancer, you're going to want to make some capsules, and you're going to want to do several doses a day, and you're not going to want to. You will be in bed for quite a number of weeks until your body has accepted the dosage level, and but after 3 months or so, there is dramatic effects, right? So I've seen it again and again, and I don't know, if there's I know I've been out of that industry, since I, been in the Philippines, so at least 5 years. I know there's a lot of things that happen. I do not know what's out there, what's available. But if you're in a state where you can grow it yourself, you can make it. Of course, if you have cancer now, you need to start right away. But within 3 months, you can have your own supply to treat yourself. But you'd have to be able to grow it and grow it large, and look at how to grow large plants and so on. Anyway, that's my little side note. So I wish you the best on that journey, because it is difficult. If you're not in one of the states that allow this, move. Don't do it illegally. Move to one of the states that allows it. I think Colorado is probably the most open about it, but if you're treating yourself medically, you can grow your own plants. In California, that might be the best way. Anyway, but I'm happy to discuss that with you if you want to contact me. All right, I'm going to switch back over to the chat. B17 apricot kernels cure cancer. Yes, that is also true. By the way, apple seeds also. You can eat, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. There's a reason, but it also means you eat the seeds. Best if you have about 40 seeds a day that are basically pulverized. You have to pulverize the seeds, otherwise they'll pass straight through you. There are elements in there, including an amount of cyanide. Now, it's a very small amount, But that's actually the critical thing in killing the cancer. So something to look at. All right, question. Is there a more clear way to briefly state what crowdfunding is? I know Thomas went through it about Libra, Facebook coin, but he mentioned crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is this. You're in a room of 1,000 people. Everyone in the room is good-hearted person and wants to help everyone. You have the idea that you want to create a cat scratching post. I use that example because it's the first time I ever saw crowdfunding. They wanted to make a cat scratching post. And they said, this is my plan. Here's my list of things I need to buy to make cat scratching posts. I need to get the wood. I need to get the tools. I need to get the carpet to cover the posts. I need the cats for testing. And then they made their little list. They said, this is how much money. I think he needed like $1,200. And he asked for contributions. Can you help me do this? And everyone said, sure, here's $1, here's $1, here's $1, here's $1, here's $5, here's $10, here's $100. And he gathered the money up to make the cat scratching posts. That's it. That's all there is to it. That is crowdfunding. Now, what it evolved to is the government getting involved with that, where because they claim grandma was being taken advantage of, right? And that's what they always do. Oh, we have to solve the problem because grandma's too loose with her money, and people are going to call her on the phone and say, yeah, we're crowdfunding for cat scratching posts. And so she says, oh, yeah, I'll give you, $1,000. And the next person calls, oh, it's another 1,000. The next person calls, it's another 1,000. And then suddenly the inheritance is gone. Right? This is the story why government has to be involved. But in reality, there is only the government wants to get involved because people were raising money and able to create businesses, and there was no securities involved. They were complete donations. But they tried to make it into a way of funding companies, and they got involved to stop it. And they made rules, and you could only do a certain amount of crowdfunding. If you went beyond this limit, then there's no government protection. But they were trying to protect people on the smaller amounts. But they also effectively made a cap. People now think you can't donate more than that. Well, that's not true. You can, but there's no government protection. All right, so then, you need the protection of government. So anyway, I hope that helps you. What else? CBD works internally, ABD topically. I want to say on the CBD oil, it's just like when they made what was it called, methadone? Is that what it was? It was the fake THC. So they didn't want people to. You want to get you off the marijuana, so they gave you these other tablets, which are the chemically created the THC, and said, okay, this is it. So there, you could take this, and you don't have to smoke it. What's the difference? Anyway, but there's no addictive qualities of marijuana. There's habits and things that you like to do. So that's it. But in regards to when you're talking about treating illnesses, the pharmaceutical industry is always about getting this one element, this one chemical, this one thing to give to you to cause this reaction in your body. But it's really more about the cross spectrum of the different cannabinoids that you need. It's not just about CBD oil. So now I'm going to say that CBD oil that's there has other cannabinoids. I'm just saying. But the issue, though, that they want to make it about is the THC. They want to eliminate that from the scenario. And there's a reason they want to do that, because it opens your third eye, that connection to God. So they don't want you to have that. So, okay, you can have everything about the marijuana, but that one, which causes euphoria and makes you happy. Same chemical your body would actually naturally create if you started laughing. So again, the whole argument makes no difference. I do understand CBD oils would be easier to obtain, but it's my belief that you also need the THC. It doesn't have to be very high amount. It doesn't. And there's many other cannabinoids I think have a much a bigger role than the CBD does. But this is the argument out there. But you do get all those other cannabinoids in the CBD oil because it's not just CBD oil. They call it that, but it's really a large spectrum of cannabinoids without the THC. Or the THC is so nanotized, like so little. You do need more than that. So anyway, if you are in fighting an illness, wouldn't it be good to be in good spirits, good feeling about the situation, wanting to laugh? Doesn't that help? So you need to have the THC, in my opinion. Okay, and then more about the B17, right? Okay. Oh, let me go ahead and share the screen again. I'm floating back and forth. Screen, no screen. Okay. Oh, Dan, should we talk about THC cancer subject more on tomorrow's show? Well, I think tomorrow is going to be a pretty interesting day. Probably not the best topic to cover, though. It's a good topic, but I think tomorrow we should be talking about what's going on in Fiji. Really, and there's some things I could bring up in today's, but I decided to hold back until tomorrow. So, all right. Actually, we've got about 20 minutes before Dank Live, so let me sign off here. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Out here, it costs $175 for the card and $100 for the doctor. I just don't have that. Well, then you can go to a place where you don't need a card. Another state. I don't know. Maybe it's more expensive to do that. Anyway, I know it's problematic. But that's why growing your own is what's needed for most people. And it's easy to grow. It is. Just don't get caught up in the hydroponic stuff, right? Don't worry all about that. Just don't use Miracle Grow. You can actually use a fish. Remember the Pilgrims when they first came and landed at Plymouth Rock? The Native Americans that were there, they said to grow your corn, plant your fish body, your fish remains in the ground next to that, and you have your fertilizer. Simple things, and you can look up internet related on how to take care of things, how to make bigger yields, and so on. The largest plant that I ever was involved with growing was 8 pounds on one plant. So you can grow them big. You just have to know how to. So if you're limited to 6, like in California, 6 times 8, 48 pounds will do you for the year, I tell you. All right, let's sign off. Thank you all for joining me today. And I appreciate everything. And sorry again about what happened yesterday. And I'm still going to keep going. We did get Dank Live in, and we'll be back with Dank Live in about 15, 20 minutes. Until then, I'll see you.